like, when I read that, I was like, no, nope, never get the literal fuck away from me. Fuck off, Terry, I fucking hate you. I was literally like thinking like, oh my god, no. I just wanted to like throw my phone on the floor. Like I wanted to, I just couldn't. I could not. I felt physically sick when that fucking happened. I was like, oh my god, Terry, what the actual fuck? Like how? Like I'm sorry. I was literally shook. I was like, hun, no, 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 no.
Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another video. This is just probably going to be me semi-ranting and just like sharing all my thoughts about Herland by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, I believe. Oh my god, this book. I'm so annoyed with myself because I literally spent over 6 hours of my life like listening to this book, and I made such detailed notes, and I just like, I will never get that time back, and it just annoys me so much that I spent like even this now, like when I was writing like a review for it, I was like, it just makes me annoyed, just the actual thought that I'm even like making a review. But because I spent all this effort and time making all these notes and stuff, I don't just want it to like just sit in my notes app for like ever. I want to actually share it because I feel like it would just be a bit of like a release of these negative emotions, and I can like let this go and like move on to thinking about better things. And I don't want all this time like just to go to a waste as well that I spent making this notes and review and everything. Like I wanted to like hopefully be seen by at least one person apart from me, so that's why I thought I would film myself spewing my thoughts. So yeah. Oh my god, I hated this book so much. I ended up giving it 1.5 stars, which I think it is my least favourite book I've ever read. Worse than Paper Ghost. Like I would literally reread Paper Ghost over this, because it was just oh no. Don't read this book. It is not worth your time and energy and your money. Like I got this as a free audiobook through Apple Books because it's like one of their like classics, and like you can get like a free audiobook. Thankfully I didn't like spend any money or use any like tokens or whatever. It doesn't work like that. But like if I had paid for this would have been like 0 stars. Like I literally, like it would have made me even more angry, the knowledge that I gave away my money to have this book. So yeah, the plot. I'm gonna just sort of read my review first, and then I've like sort of compiled, and then afterwards I'm just gonna go through all my notes of like what actually happens in the thing. So that'll be filled with spoilers. I'll put like a timestamp for that part of it down below. But yeah, so the basic plot is 3 men go to Herland. They sort of get captured and get educated on the country's history and the population, the people there. Then they're allowed out to like teach about the outside world, and they like sort of like see how like their way of life maybe not be the best, but like then they kind of have like relationships, and that's all I'm going to say because I do not care to say anymore at the moment. I just have some like points that I wanted to talk about, I guess. So yeah, let me just read this out because okay, this is going to start, the battery's going down really quick. Okay, so it's beneficial as a time capsule for a certain type of feminist perspective in the early 1900s, but even the view of the women is sexist. Their whole like religion and purpose is bound to motherhood. So even in a society where there is only women, they're still tied to this idea of fulfilling a woman's biological function, i.e. have have a baby. So it it definitely like gives off like turf energy, like the whole book does. So yeah, and there's also like the idea of like abortion is like the most heinous crime like possible for these women. But like I guess this is sort of like more time accurate to when it was written, I guess. And I guess like the ideology of the vast majority of people at the time, but it's still just like, I don't know. It hasn't aged well, I don't think. The women also took part in genocide and eugenics in their attempt to create perfect people, whereby any traits deemed unworthy in certain women meant they weren't allowed to reproduce or like encouraged not to. And this likely got rid of like disabled and mentally ill people and possibly other races, as when the men like go around, they don't like speak about any variation in people's skin color, but they do speak about like some other like differences in the population's appearance, but like not skin color. So yeah, they did sort of like eugenics basically to create perfect women, with like perfect ideals and all this stuff, like strong, all that stuff. Also the racism spewed by the men, specifically Terry, was it was so disgusting to read. Oh my god, there was a point near the end where he said that by mastering women of different races, he knew how to better treat and like get white women. Basically, like by raping other women, he knew how best to like force himself on a white woman, because like I literally, like when I read that, I was like, no, nope, never get the literal fuck away from me. Fuck off, Terry, I fucking hate you. I was literally like thinking like, oh my god, no. I just wanted to like throw my phone on the floor. Like I wanted to like, I just couldn't. I could not. I felt physically sick when that bit happened. I was like, oh my god, Terry, what the actual fuck? Like how? Like, I'm sorry. I was literally shook. If I was like, no. Oh my god. I had to like listen to like some Madonna and Cher to like restart my brain, I guess. I do not know. And I was out at the time and I was just like, I was listening to it, I was like, oh my god, like what if someone like is thinking like I'm like enjoying this or like getting pointers or stuff. I was like, oh my god, I kind of got scared. I was like, no, I this is not me, like no way at all. I hate it. So yeah. And then this brings me on to more sexism and misogyny, which is rampant throughout the book. The attitudes of both the three men and some of the women like fit this like ideal, and it is kind of like horrible to read at times. Like I'm just like, oh my god, it's literally like, so just no. The writing is crap. Like it is kind of garbage. It could have been forgivable if the plot and characters were better, but like no, like all three parts of it was just no. There is so much repetition, like oh my literal god, like Charlotte, like hun, like why is there so much repetition? Like I'm sorry, but no. I know it was originally published like in her like magazine, I believe, like in like issues, and then later compiled into a novel. But like where's the editing? Like, so sorry, did you edit anything? Because I don't think you did. So much could be omitted. Like I literally I wrote here, I read about Terry's view of women like 20 times, and how the women praised motherhood like 30 times, and just so many things was repeated, and it was just like, it was just so jarring and frustrating. And I'm like, oh my god, like did this pass any edit at all? Like did you even try to edit this book? Because I don't think you did. I think you just like wrote, and then you was just like, okay, send it off. Like like no, oh my gosh. And I just could not stand it. The writing is also very simple, it lacks sophistication, and it is extremely boring. Oh my good lord. The characters were all so shallow, they're underdeveloped and boring. Oh my good lord above me, were they just the most, like, unseasoned, boringest things ever in the whole entire world. I just could not. I hated basically all of them, even the ones you're supposed to like, or at least like emphasize with. Van, I think, isn't, I can't remember his name, it's like Van something. They just call him mostly Van. He's the main character. He's like one of the three men. He is shown to display some changes in his attitude, but it all sort of just goes around in circles. And near the end, when Terry tried to rape Alina, who was like his wife in a way, Van was like, oh, it's not that bad. He's like thinking like, oh, like it's sort of like Alina's right to like submit to her husband. So I'm just like, Van, what? Like, no. It's just horrible. I'm thinking like, oh, you're sort of changing, you're being nice to your wife and all this stuff. But then he's still like, I think we should, do something, and like sex isn't just for like making babies, like it can be enjoyable. And she's like, but like I don't want to. And he's like, but like we have urges and stuff. And he's like sort of like, oh, I just no. Especially as like these women, they didn't grow up with men and like any of that stuff. So I'm just like, just no, please, just like no. Jeff was also just irritating, and this bit I don't know why I sort of added this. I went back and I was like, okay, there was something I remembered I wanted to add into my review that I just thought I'd put here. What I'd like to add is that although Terry is extremely detestable, he was written to be the like epitome of a racist, sexist, chauvinistic pig of a man. And it is sort of like the author's portrayal of this certain type of man. But this type of man is still alive and well today, spewing hate, thinking they're the shit, and like entitled to things. And so like despite the over 100 years like gap since publication, we have still yet to rid our society of this type of human. And yeah, so I don't really know like why I wrote this point, but like I just wanted to make a point that like, oh my god, Terry was just, whew, no. Now let me talk about a little bit of positivity, I guess, in some sense. The premise and plot was kind of like really interesting, and that's one of my very reasons I actually like listened to it in the first place. So I was like, oh my god, like a society just of all women when there's no men, like that sounds so great and so interesting. Like what are they gonna do? Downhill. So it's a land cut away from the rest of civilization, with only young women left after all the men, elderly and children were massacred. They defend for themselves when one gives birth like miraculously by herself, and this follows on for like generations, creating a country of sisters. This was really promising, and it did do a good job at showing how women could not only survive but like thrive without men. They built things, educated the population well, intensified agriculture, and seemed to have solved the population crisis. There's a bit iffy on the methods, sort of like eugenics and sort of like not allowing certain women to have children, but but there is like some merit in their approach if like a certain woman like chose they didn't want to have a child, and instead they used up their sort of like motherly love on the other children to make them like educated and perfect. They also care well for the environment and other species. They move away from like livestock rearing to like modified vegetables, supplying like more for more people. And there's even an example of like there being like an inedible tree that was like worked on like over 300 years, I think, that became like a superfood like type like fruit or something. So yes, a lot of things they did was good, but why is motherhood their everything? Like, oh my, it's not a good portrayal of feminism, because like it doesn't allow for like any women that don't want to have a child or don't want to like look after children. Like there's like it's just everything's just motherhood, and it's just like like I don't know, it's just uncomfortable, and there's like no nuance at all. It's just like purely they are there to be mothers. They also don't have any type of love except that which is directed at the children, their future, or their country, their present. With like no real friendships or romantic love at all. See where I'm going with this? What about gay women? Like, what about lesbians? Like, I'm sorry, if there was no men around and all these thousands of women or whatever, I can't remember how much population, then like surely there'll be some romantic attraction between some women, and like a bond would grow between them, and like that's more than just like a fellow citizen of the country. Like, where's my lesbians at? I'm sorry. Like, all these women and none of them are gay. I'm sorry. Hun. It ain't right, love. Motherhood is the be-all and end-all for every woman of the country. But some of these women are not allowed to reproduce. Or like, I believe they are. Or like, I can't remember, I don't know. And they're only like allowed to have a baby like once, but like I think they have 3, but oh my god, my head. And then like Van picks up on this idea of how like all these women are just like starving for like so much love to give, but like there's not enough children to like absorb it, basically. And the solution is just that like they direct their love to the other children that are in the country, and it just seems like so that like these children become perfect, and it's just like frustrating how like everything's just like it just fits like, oh yeah, that's your solution, of course it is, so you can make more perfect people, and it's all like round and round and round. I'm just like, it's just frustrating, and it just irked me a lot. And yeah, it's also this ideal that everything like someone does is done for the country and their future, like children and sisters and stuff. Like there's like no pleasure that can be gained simply by doing the things one enjoys. So it's sort of like they're just making like a country of robots, basically. Like they don't have like any like selfness, really. Like they do have like individuality, but like they don't have like passions and stuff. Like everything is just for the country. So I don't know. Okay. I personally, I usually do place women higher than men. Like I usually, like, is that misogynistic of me? I don't know how to pronounce the word, but you know, the opposite of misogynistic. In some respects, I guess, yes, but I do have certain reasons and like some personal, like, not necessarily trauma, but like things that I don't want to share, that make me feel safer being around women, and I just prefer the company of women. So yeah, but I don't think that women are necessarily better than men or like worthy more. But I just prefer their company, if that makes sense. I don't know, like maybe I'm being like very anti-men. Sorry, I don't want to be. I don't think like women aren't like better than men. I just prefer being with, I do not know. But anyway, the 3 men believe that men are better than women, and all the women believe that women are better than men. So there was like no like equality or nuance portrayed at all, and they're just constantly like butting heads. I'm just like, it's just like annoying, because like neither of them really like learns what they wanted to learn, because I don't think the women, by taking them in, really wanted to like have this equality. They're just sort of like, oh, maybe it would be better like, or like it'll be another way to have children, like being a bisexual race, not as in like sexuality, but like two sexes. It's just, yeah, I don't know. Should you read this book? To be honest, no. However, if you go into it with the intention of critiquing it and looking at things from a sociological perspective, it might be helpful. There is some interesting points made and realizations that I would say are worthy of like revealing and looking into, but nothing was really necessarily new to me, like stuff, but I guess it was written in 1915, so obviously times have changed, and like ideas and opinions have become more like prevalent and commonplace, and the rights of women have improved. But yeah, from a literary perspective, it's honestly kind of trash. It has boring, long-winded plot, shallow, unlikable characters, and just generally bad writing. So I would not recommend it if you're wanting something like, if you just want to like get engrossed in like a nice story or anything like that. But if you want to look at it, like study it, I guess, or like take things from it, but like to critique and things like that, then it might be quite beneficial, but it's not like an enjoyable read. Yeah. Now, just because I'm annoyed and I want to just share these, I'm just going to quickly talk about all of my notes of what happens in the plot.
Three men on an expedition and go to a trail together in search of Herland, a place where only women live, told by the natives. Like, it's just like they say like native and savages. So I'm just like, oh my god. Sea clothes and a river of different colours. The savage guide didn't want to take them, so they just like discussed it between them. Then like a little bit of time goes by, they fly over and land in state of perfect cultivation, cared for forest, enormous park/garden, looked like a civilized culture. Land in a seemingly private area, looked safe and civilized, great beauty. See no men, but must be children, ? But must be as they were children, I mean. They climb a tree looking for the women that are like above them, and then they introduce themselves. Jeff, Van, Terry. Some of them introduced themselves, and the men beckoned for them all to like come down the tree, but they didn't, and they gestured for the men to leave instead. Terry got out a pendant, and one girl snatched it and fleeted away in the direction of a town. They then reach the town, and the women that are there are like waiting for them. Terry provided offerings to them, which they like took, and then the women like took them to a building. They tried to get away, but difficult. He shot in the air. What? And was he shot like in the air because like he thought they was gonna like kill them, or I don't know. And then they were seized and brought before an old woman and had was anaesthetized cloth placed on them, so basically it was like put to sleep. Then they awoke in a room, stripped and washed with belongings but not their own clothes. They go into another room and eat, given leaflet to learn the language and to share their own. They each had their own tutor and a guard. They were holed up in like a castle-like place, treated as one another. Like they weren't treated as like less than sort of men, they were just treated as like other people, I guess. Jeff and Van seem contented learning about the language, culture, geography and everything, but Terry, I hate him, is all like, I'm a man, I shouldn't be told what to do by a woman. And just wants to leave, so decide to try and leave together. It would have just been himself if didn't go. They got down out of the window, get away from building, walking through Forest Park before finding place to sleep, eventually get back to plane after hiding in the day and going out at night, eating nuts, but found it had been covered by something. Then saw the three girls from earlier that they gave them nuts and played a game. They begged for their knives to try and get the thing off, but didn't. Tried to run after them but couldn't catch. Went back to the ship but they was found out and they was taken back to the castle place. They had been seen at night and the women were just like waiting for them to come out. They explained that we're considered guests and once learned we'll be allowed out, so started to study harder. Jeff asks if there are any men, not for 2,000 years, although women mothers but no fathers, waiting for people from outside to teach them about it. Don't see value in men, e.g. not as useful in cats, in insects and can be dangerous/kill. Didn't want cattle anymore to feed the people. What about milk? They had their own, but for adults, looked puzzled, so taught them about the dairy industry and how the calf is removed from the mum. So I feel like this was quite good because like obviously the dairy industry is horrific. But yeah, their women dress for function, not for decoration. They care for their animals, they're kind, caring, curiosity, very interested in learning about the culture. Van and Terry started to see Jeff as a traitor. No, that's halfway around. I've got mixed up. There's a debate on the use of dogs, sort of like a city's friend of man, but it was like a prisoner being like chained up and like used for something. I don't know. 6 months in the country fortress, free in city only. Colonels and children was around. Under surveillance for 3 more months. They learnt more. Van specialised in Herland's history. It used to be a bisexual race, powerful, decimated by war and heavily reduced population, and made brave fight for resistance, walled in by other army with only virgin women left alive, so rose in sheer desperation and slaughtered the the brutal conquerors. They were in despair and stuck there, grouped and cared for each other. Then a miracle happened when a woman bore a child, gift from the gods. Becoming sacred, having 5 daughters, then in turn bore 5 more daughters, which created the spirit of the nation, changed from mourning to pride, and then like this gift spread throughout the country. One family all descended from one mother, the queen, priestess mother of them all. The population grew as a sisterhood, no men to fear, and so no need for protection. There was no wild beast. Terry didn't believe this and grew more dissatisfied. Idea of femininity. Those feminine charms we are so fond of. Mere reflected masculinity developed to please us. I don't know what I just wrote then, but well. Return to the history of the country. They had no enemies, they were all sisters and friends, no interest in war and plunder. Mother Earth bearing the fruit. Life was a long cycle of motherhood, set out how to make the best type of people. However, the children differed at birth. The real birth later through education. So it's sort of like, it doesn't really matter how they're born, it's like everything is up to the like nurturing. There's a focus on beauty, kindness, growing, not by competition, but united action. This idea of competition is a stimulus to industry. No man would want to work if there's no need to. But competition is a motive for us, not for them. Men do everything. Women loved, idolised, honoured, kept in the home to care for the children. Terry said that and how only poor women worked. What is poor, they asked. USA and Europe don't have poverty anymore. Survival of the fittest notion. Women driven to labour by necessity. Told they were going to teach the women. Most all had high intelligence of sciences and the country, but not much of the outside world. Much better education than like women in like their country. And then they gave lectures to like people. Terry, angry at why being controlled and what the women want of them, told to teach and to learn of their culture, not allowed. They weren't allowed out as feel unsafe as to what the men, not what the men might do to young women, but like it's a country of millions of mothers, and how like if they brought harm on anybody, then like the women like would retaliate. They hold motherhood as very important. Can't find anything like it in other countries' cultures. The man explained they do everything for the children. They are all mothers. Men arguing about it and how women are natural cooperators, as what Jeff said, with Terry needing to learn things he didn't want to. Like Terry dislikes doesn't really care. The population grew by 5 every 30 years. Growing for overpopulation led to intensive agriculture, removal of livestock. The answer, not a struggle for existence with no serenity or peace or no predatory extensions, came together agreeing to only make a certain number of people to maintain their high standards. The hardest thing for some to do is forgo motherhood for their country. Very shocked at the idea of killing the unborn. Is it only men? Van tells his mentor about bad things women have done. Their method of limiting children was when young women started to get the urge, just longing for a child, to go intensive work voluntarily, and then she wouldn't have a child instead of caring for the other babies. The mother love has one more than one channel of expression. All children are fully loved as they don't have enough to satisfy this longing. Fan thought it was a pious as a nation of starving mothers, but no, it just means they all love them more so. Fan came up with the analogy of their children being cultivated roses compared to other nations' tumbleweeds. I'm just like, so they put them on such a high pedestal that they're like roses compared to like tumbleweed. They're allowed a tour of the country with no guards, only their tutors, have a name and one that is earned after time, the women. Why do children need to take her mother's name? No need. There's no maternal v paternal. Puts names on things that they make, so they consume. So they put their names on the things they make, so the consumer knows who to be grateful for, but not for like ownership of it. Herland is approximately the size of Netherlands with a population of 3 million, not large but quality, with considerable variation, diversion due to education and art of mutation, more alike as less excessive types, talking about their people. 900 years experimenting in agriculture to make food sources from a tree that previously didn't bear edible fruit. Everything which came from the earth went back to it. Increasingly valuable soil, big comparison to the carelessness in the outside world that tried to divert attention from. They began to look for women's faults, like the faults in the women, but they couldn't see any, like they just was like, these women can't do anything wrong. Then the van asked his tutor, Samel, what is their worst qualities? And she was like, of course we do. Their standard of perfection gets further away. But like they have some, but like their perfection is all like getting better and better and better. They've had 600 years since the last criminal. They try to breed out the worst qualities. So like eugenics, e.g. renounced motherhood, but some didn't want to, so they wasn't allowed to rear their children. Basically the children was like separated, and then Van is like, they separate the mother and the child, and she was like, not usually, but like the more they love the children, the more they don't want the children to be raised by the unfit. So like if like a woman like has like a bad like trait or something, and she had a child, because she herself was like, oh, I'm not going to be a good influence, she was like, okay, have my child, you can raise them better. I'm just like that's just like such a sad way of like looking at things. Like, I don't know. It's just not a very nice book. So why not the same with education and child rearing? So why aren't they the same people that do the education and rearing a child? It's because the mother doesn't become bereaved as others who are wiser, and she is glad that the child has the highest care. So like, she's just like, you can take my child, you know. When travelling and giving lectures, men were the most decorated, only beards setting them apart from women. Have made a digest on what the men have told them, so they've made like a pamphlet sort of thing, and this was distributed throughout the country. The girls had many questions. They split off with a group to talk to. Terry's approach irritated and resented some of them. He was like, they began being like flushed with anger, like, and it was like, just like, I'm gonna leave you. Van had the largest crowd, becoming cocky and making Terry jealous and rude, and Terry was like, they're not girls, they're boys. I was like, hun. When arrived, knew they had come, and councils fought. about re-establishing. So like when they actually came to the nation, the council was like, okay, let's try and re-establish a bisexual nation. The men didn't have the pick, but the girls might have the pick of like what man they wanted. The men were exhibited, but there was no takers. First of all, it was interested, but like not as like a lover. Had no experience of sexual love. Like Van the best, like the women liked the Van the best, as thought he was the most like them, more like people. So like, they didn't think he was like the most like a woman. They just thought he was the most like a person, I guess, because obviously he didn't have men, and felt at ease with him. Van became close friends with Ellador, Jeff became friends with Celeste, and Terry became friends with Alina, who were the three girls that they saw at the tree at the beginning. Van liked her as a friend, and the relationship grew like a tree, did a lot together. Land opened up to him and shared lots of knowledge, became inseparable. It seems he understood and could do things. I too could grow if she would help me. The three felt they had a claim on the men, but men felt they should have chosen them. The normal way goes sex, then comradeship, then marriage, and either friendship or reversal, so like a breakdown of the relationship to marriage. But there was like no sex attraction to like appeal to at the start, so like it couldn't go like sex. You couldn't go like that. Jeff assumed that motherhood is enough of a burden, so men pick up the rest when asked if women are too weak. They can't carry a basket in his country. Does it work in all countries? The men like doing it, but men don't like to be it being done to them. So like, why would the women like it being done to them? Like having things carried and stuff. Which, I mean, I guess like I don't know. It's like I don't know. They don't think marriage is like a ceremony. Jeff wanted to have it because he's like very religious, but he wanted to like bring the Celeste back to outside Wales so he can get like a marriage with her and stuff. Terry said that they need to take them on their own terms and set about mastering them, which I was like, oh my god, mastering women. I'm just like, fuck off. So much repetition. The courtship continued. They were all living in a treehouse, brought up the idea of having a home of their own for each couple, but the girls were like, why? Their work takes them around, so like they just need to be friends. They are free, but there was a string to it. They learnt more how children were educated as a person in their own right. Great literature, encouraged from young to do what they're good at. No babies cried, some fell, but made as much ruckus as an adult would in the outside world. They planned what they would do for their country, vigorous and joyous creatures, seek to nourish and stimulate, feed mind to meet the natural needs of the brain, and a way to develop the mind, expand in it, like to keep on learning as they grow despite their specific interests. It's sort of like a Montessori method of education, which is like inquisitive, adhering to games instead of like formal education and schooling. Oh my god, I didn't know how this went. Okay. The religion, how could God be loving but allow babies to die? Question mark. Only ignorant would believe that like this was a thing. They had no horrible ideas like in outside religion, so like there was no like the bad things in like the Bible and stuff. There's no respect for the past. No, they're gone. They knew less and the future is unworthy of them. So like they don't really like respect their past at all. The mother love accumulates in mother spirit. Divine love didn't expect worship or honour. She was just like, do things from our mothers, not for them. There was no punishments in life, so there's none in death. Parental measures were used instead. I guess that's quite good. Mother's not angry with us. Why should God be? So like, is God a person? No, but is an indwelling spirit versus the like male Abrahamic God, which took over like a male-dominated like ideology like over 6,000 years, and then like questioning why it developed in other areas but still hold ancient religious ideas. Like why do places still have like ancient religious ideas but they've grown in other things. Held in high esteem, their ideals were their religion and God working with them. No concept of eternity, it seems absurd. Where's the proof? Don't want/need their life to go on, only that of her child and babies of Herland. So like everything's just for the babies. The marriage ceremony, taking of names, contested idea as why would they like be seen as the man's? Like women just lose their name but the men don't, which is like seems unfair, which yeah it does. They had a triple wedding, sort of. There was large crowds and dances, and their new anthem was played. They loved their husbands, but not in the same sense of love. Disagreements in matter of the home, lie of males, like the days of males for fatherhood. Men wanted separate houses, but woman didn't see a point in it. They were alone in the forest already. Wanting to move from kinship to sexual love, always stating we, not from a personal perspective. They do sex not only to mate. Why? Why are you like doing it to not mate? Like if you like the was like you should only do it to mate. OMG, the misogyny is unbearable. Keep women feminine to go away from the masculine world. Terry boasting about mastering women and different races so he can better treat whites. Disgust this racist chauvinist pig. Want to throw my phone on the floor. Idea was to take and thought women liked being taken. Raged at how Alina didn't like his advances. Quarreled a lot and wanted assistance to help her work. Hid in her room one night. Big struggle calling other women. Was anaesthetized. Alina in fury and wanted him killed. They held a trial and was sentenced to leave. They were all exiled. Van thought they got off quite lightly. Terry under guard, convinced of an unpardonable sin, allowed to visit him whilst departure plans were underway. Eleanor and Celeste was meant to come too, but felt ashamed. We need to be prepared for the downfalls. Like the men felt ashamed of like them coming back to their world because like it's so much worse than Herland. But didn't care, and they wanted to see marriage and how the women and like the mothers were in the outside world. Van and Jeff didn't want to leave as Herland was a paradise. They didn't feel homesick when they were there. They dreaded coming back and to see the defects more clearly. Our world, men were the world, everything, and women only the female of the species. In Herland it was the opposite, but men even less because they didn't even have them. So like women were everything in Herland, like men wasn't even a thing, but in their world, like our world, I guess, men was like the main thing and women was just the female version, if that makes sense. Eleanor's shocked that women also have sex for pleasure. Humans are not merely animals, as they were doing it as a means to an end. Very sympathetic to Terry. Van was sympathetic to Terry. I was just like, how the fuck was he wrong? Like, how the fuck was Terry in the wrong? And wants Van to be patient. Celeste got pregnant, so decided to stay and have it. They value women in their place, which is the home, but these were not pets, not weak, so Van could love up, and they were right. Idea of coming home to mother, so like for yet to come back. They had been dealing with, they detailed all the vices of the outside world via asking questions like contains diseases, ignorance, poverty, unrest, etc. So they were unwilling to expose the women to like free communication. They cannot betray location until Elidor comes back. Terry refused, they would remain an absolute prisoner. They promised in the end to keep a secret, and then they left.
And yeah, I think this was like part of like the second one in the series. There was one that was before it, but I think it was written after it, and there's one after. But I honestly do not care. I'm so happy I've just spewed all these thoughts, and I'm just gonna put it all together and just post it, because I hate this book. I absolutely hate it. I despise it. So yeah, I'm so happy this is actually done now, because I can get it out of my brain. I can delete it from my notes. I never have to think about that book ever again, apart from when I come to the end of the year when I do my worst books of the year. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I doubt many people have stayed this far, but anyway, I hope you have anyway. See you very soon. Bye bye.